Welcome back to Kringle's Christmas Stories, brought to you by Kringle's Christmas Shot, home of Comet's Choice premium reindeer food. We're going to a snowy Norwegian village tonight, the village of Shoreheim. And as always, it's Christmas Eve.
Very festive.
But in Fjordheim,
Yes.
Christmas Eve comes with a little bit of a twist.
Yeah.
This is a place where Christmas Eve is a time for vigilance,
Oh,
because they have to hide their brooms.
hide their brooms. What's going on here?
Well, let's find out together. The story starts in the snow-blanketed village of Shoreheim, nestled in the shadow of Norway's fjords. Christmas Eve was a time of joy, feasting, and above all, vigilance. Every year, as twilight descended, families gathered by the hearth to eat risgrut, a creamy rice porridge, and weave intricate crafts of straw and wool. Yet, amid the warmth and laughter, a quiet urgency pervaded the household.
I wonder why.
For tonight, like every Christmas Eve, they had to hide the brooms. "Quickly, Maya, hand me the small broom," called out Ingrid. Her brow furrowed as she yanked open the cupboard beneath the stairs. Her hands trembled slightly, but she worked swiftly, shoving the straw-handled broom deep behind a stack of linens.
Seems a little extreme, doesn't it?
Maybe, but let's keep going. Maya, her 10-year-old daughter, obediently handed her another broom, this one larger, and wrapped in a scarlet ribbon. "Will they really come?" Maya asked, her voice a mix of fear and excitement. Her grandmother, old Solveig, sat nearby in her rocking chair, her gnarled fingers busy braiding a garland of straw. She chuckled softly, the sound like the creak of the old pines that lined the fjord. "Aye, child," Solveig said, her voice grave. "The witches always come on Christmas Eve. They love the scent of the holiday fir trees, roasted meats, the risgryt. But most of all, they love our brooms. If you don't hide them well, they'll steal them to ride upon and spread mischief." Ingrid shot her mother a sharp glance. "Don't frighten the girl more." But even as she spoke, she double-checked the pantry door to ensure it was bolted. Tradition dictated that every broom mop or sweepable object be hidden or secured on Christmas Eve. For as long as anyone could remember, stories told of witches who prowled the night during the holiday, seeking household brooms to aid their spells and wicked schemes.
So the brooms are for the witches.
It seems that way. Some villagers claim to have heard eerie laughter outside their windows, seen streaks of fire racing across the midnight sky. Others whispered of stranger things. Animals speaking in human tongues, shadows that danced without light, and frozen footprints that began at no discernible starting point.
This is getting a little creepy now.
It is, yeah. Maya sat at the table, her small fingers shaping dough into figures for the Christmas wreath. "Grandmother," she asked after a while, "why do they come on Christmas? Don't they have their own feast?" Solving paused her, braiding her clouded eyes, gazing into the fire, as if she could see the past within its flickering flames. "Christmas Eve is when the veil is thinnest," she explained. "The old ones say it's the night when the spirit world walks closest to ours. Witches, trolls, draugr, they all stir on this sacred night. It's why we eat the porridge." "The porridge?" Maya echoed, puzzled. "Aye, risgrut," Solving said with a nod. "A gift for the Nis of the farm spirit. He keeps our home safe and our livestock healthy, but only if we remember to honor him. Leave him no porridge and he might abandon us, or worse, invite trouble." At this, Ingrid placed a steaming bowl of porridge on the windowsill.
So they have to worry about the Nissy too.
Right. She sprinkled it with sugar and cinnamon, then added a pat of butter that melted slowly into a golden pool. "There," he said. "That should keep the Nissa happy." The family resumed their preparations as darkness deepened outside, cloaking the village in an almost oppressive quiet. Snowflakes began to drift gently past the window, swirling in the wind like tiny silver spirits. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Ingrid froze. Visitors on Christmas Eve were rare. Everyone stayed in their own homes, wary of the tales that haunted the season. The knock came again, louder this time, echoing through the small cottage. "Who could it be?" whispered Maya, her wide eyes darting to her grandmother. Solveig's lips pressed into a thin line. "Only one way to find out," she said, though her voice carried a note of unease. Ingrid hesitated, then approached the door. She unlatched it cautiously, letting in a blast of icy air. A figure stood on the threshold, cloaked and hooded, their face obscured by the shadows of the night. "God kveld," the figure greeted, their voice low and melodic. "May I come in? The snow has made my journey long, and I seek shelter." Ingrid hesitated. It was customary to offer hospitality to travelers, especially during Christmas, but something about this visitor felt strange. "Who are you?" she asked. The figure tilted their head, and for a moment Ingrid thought she saw a glint of something sharp beneath the hood. "A weary soul, nothing more," came the reply. "I mean no harm." Before Ingrid could decide, Solving spoke from behind her. "Let them in. It's bad luck to turn away a guest on Christmas Eve." Reluctantly, Ingrid stepped aside.
The figure entered, bringing with them a chill that seemed to extinguish the warmth of the room. Maya clung to her mother's skirt, staring at the visitor with a mix of curiosity and fear. The stranger removed their hood, revealing a pale, sharp-featured face framed by hair as black as a raven's wing. Their eyes, an unnatural shade of green, glimmered like emeralds in the firelight. They smiled, but it didn't reach their eyes. "Thank you for your kindness," the stranger said, their voice smooth as velvet. "I have traveled far and find myself famished. Might I have a bowl of your porridge?" Ingrid's heart sank. The porridge was for the Nis. To refuse a guest was rude, but to anger the farm spirit was far worse. She glanced at Solveig, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. With a forced smile, Ingrid fetched a fresh bowl and handed it to the stranger. The visitor's smile widened as they accepted the porridge. They ate slowly, savoring each bite, their eyes never leaving the family. "Delicious," they murmured. "You Norwegians know the magic of simplicity." "Speaking of magic," Solveig interjected, her voice sharp, "we've heard many tales about tonight. Strange things, dangerous things. Have you seen anything unusual on your journey?" The stranger's gaze flickered to Solveig, their expression unreadable. "Perhaps," they said. "The night is full of secrets after all. But tell me, do you hide your brooms, as the stories say, to keep the witches away?" Maya gasped, clutching her mother's arm. Ingrid stepped forward protectively. "We do," she said firmly, "and we've no need to fear, for our home is well guarded." "Of course," the stranger said, though their tone suggested amusement. They rose, their movements graceful and predatory, and walked to the window. The snow had thickened, obscuring the world beyond. Such a shame, they mused, that so many dismiss the old ways. But you honor them still. Solveig stood, her frail frame suddenly imposing. "Add what of you, stranger?" she asked. "Do you honor the old ways or mock them?" The stranger turned, their eyes gleaming. "I honor power, wise one," they said, "and I know it when I see it." Hours passed, and the stranger remained, their presence unsettling yet oddly mesmerizing. Maya found herself drawn to their stories, tales of distant lands and forgotten magics, but Ingrid remained wary. Solveig, meanwhile, observed the visitor closely, her hands never idle as she wove intricate patterns into her straw garland. As the clock neared midnight, the stranger's demeanor shifted. They leaned forward, their green eyes alight with an almost feverish intensity. "Shall we play a game?" they suggested. "What kind of game?" Solveig asked, her tone cautious. "A simple one," the stranger replied. "A riddle. If you solve it, I shall grant you a gift. But if you fail—" Their smile turned razor sharp. "I will take something of equal value." "And what would that be?" Ingrid demanded, her voice trembling. The stranger's gaze lingered on Maya. "That depends." "Enough!" Solveig snapped. "We accept your challenge, but know this. You tread on dangerous ground." The stranger laughed, a sound that echoed like breaking glass. "Very well. Listen carefully. I am born of the earth, but take to the sky. I am swift and silent, yet I can never fly. I am your ally in toil, but in revel I stray. What am I?"
Oh, what is it? I can't wait to find out. Ooh, this is a tough one.
It is, isn't it?
I'm stumped.
"Let's see what they come up with." Silence fell, the only sound the crackling of the fire. Maya looked at her mother, who shook her head helplessly. Ingrid turned to Solveig, who sat with her eyes closed, deep in thought. After what felt like an eternity, Solveig spoke, her voice steady, despite the tension hanging in the air. "The broom," she said. "You speak of the broom." The stranger clapped their hands, a sound that seemed to splinter the silence, their laughter ringing through the room. "Well done, old one. You are indeed wise. As promised, I shall grant you a gift." Reaching into their cloak, they produced a small ornate box and handed it to Solveig. "Open it when the sun rises," they instructed, their voice softening slightly. "Until then, keep your brooms hidden. Not all who walk the night are as forgiving as I." With that, the stranger donned their hood and vanished into the swirling snow, leaving behind only the faint scent of pine and something sharper like burnt sugar. The family huddled together, their brooms securely hidden, their hearts heavy with questions, waiting anxiously for the first light of dawn. When the sun finally rose, painting the frost-covered windows with hues of pink and gold, Solveig carefully opened the box.
Inside, nestled on a bed of black silk, lay a single black feather, smooth and shining like obsidian. "A raven's feather," Solveig murmured, her voice filled with awe. "A symbol of protection," she added, her gaze fixed on the feather, "and a warning." From that day forward, the family's farm thrived like never before. The crops were bountiful, the livestock strong, and a sense of peace settled over their home. But every Christmas Eve, they remembered the stranger's visit and took extra care to hide their brooms. For the night was still full of secrets, and not all guests were as benevolent as they seemed. Our story shifts now, transporting us back to the heart of Shorheim. Imagine a landscape where snow sweeps through the village like a whispered spell, wrapping rooftops and winding paths in a silvery quilt.
It sounds beautiful.
It does. The fjord waters, black and mirror smooth, reflect the moon's pale gaze, while icy winds whistle through the pines, carrying with them the faint scent of fir resin and the promise of something ancient and magical.
Wow, what a description.
Inside one of the clustered wooden homes, a hearth blazes merrily, casting a warm glow that reaches every corner of the snug room. Young Maya sits perched on a stool near the fire, her small hands diligently working dough into festive shapes. A goat, a star, a ring. The air is filled with the fragrant aroma of cinnamon and melting butter as her mother Ingrid carefully ladles a thick porridge into a ceramic bowl. The creamy surface of the porridge gleams invitingly in the firelight, crowned with a golden pool of melting butter. But despite the festive atmosphere, a palpable tension hangs in the air. Across the room, Ingrid kneels beside an open cupboard, her brow creased with worry. She's pushing a bundle of brooms, simple straw ones tied at the base with twine deep into the shadowy recesses of the cupboard. Her movements are hurried, purposeful, her gaze darting towards the frost-rimed windows every so often. It's as if she expects to see something peering back from the darkness beyond. "Pass me the small one, Maya," Ingrid says, her voice clipped, but steady, betraying her underlying unease. Maya obediently fetches the broom, leaning against the wall, her wide eyes searching her mother's face. "Do you think they'll come tonight, Mama?" she asks, her voice soft. Yet the question hangs heavy in the air. Before Ingrid can answer so vague, her mother-in-law lets out a dry chuckle from her chair by the fire. The old woman's knotted fingers work deftly at a length of straw, braiding it into a decorative garland. Her silver hair shines like spun moonlight, and her milky eyes seem to gleam with the memory of countless winters past. "They always come," Solveig states, her tone matter-of-fact, yet laced with an eerie finality. "The witches don't forget Christmas Eve," she continues, a hint of mischief in her voice. "They love the scent of the feast, the fir trees, the roasting meets the rescrute." Her voice drops to a conspiratorial whisper, as if sharing a secret that the very walls might overhear. "But most of all," she confides, leaning closer, "they love our brooms. Leave them out," Solveig warns, her eyes twinkling, "and they'll snatch them away to ride on the wind, laughing as they scatter mischief across the land." Maya's breath hitches in her chest, and she instinctively clutches at her mother's skirt. "But we've hidden them, haven't we?" she asks, her voice barely a whisper.
"That we have," Ingrid assures her, her voice firm, though the slight tremble in her hands as she latches the cupboard door betrays her lingering anxiety. "There's nothing to fear," she adds, trying to sound confident, "as long as we follow the old ways."
So they're back to being afraid of the witches.
"That's right. Nothing to fear," Solveig echoes, a wry smile curling her lips, "so long as you honor the niece, too." The mention of the niece makes Maya glance towards the windowsill. Ingrid has just placed a bowl of porridge there, a special offering meant to appease the niece. Outside, the snow falls thick and slow, the flakes swirling in the lamplight, creating an ethereal dance of light and shadow. Ingrid sprinkles the bowl with sugar and cinnamon, adding a final touch of sweetness to the offering. The golden butter has begun to run, tracing glistening paths down the edges of the porridge, creating an irresistible aroma that fills the room. "For the niece," Ingrid murmurs softly, her voice filled with respect, "to keep his favor." Maya's small voice cuts through the silence, filled with innocent curiosity. "What happens if we forget to feed him?" she asks, her eyes wide with concern. Solveig's hands pause mid-braid, and she leans forward, her face illuminated by the fire's flickering glow. "The niece is the guardian of the farm," she explains, her voice rich with the weight of tradition.
"Leave him no offering," she continues, her tone going serious, "and he might take offense. He'll abandon the house, or worse, call mischief to our door." Her eyes narrow slightly, her voice dropping to a grave whisper. "The witches would delight in such an invitation." A sudden gust of wind howls outside, rattling the shutters and sending shivers down their spines. Maya shivers, and instinctively leans closer to her mother, seeking comfort and reassurance. Ingrid casts a pointed glare at her mother-in-law, silently disapproving of her attempt to frighten the child. But she says nothing, choosing instead to focus on calming her daughter's fears. Solveig simply smirks, unfazed by her daughter-in-law's disapproval, and returns to her, braiding, her fingers moving with practiced ease. As the evening deepens, the candles cast soft halos of light around the room, their flames steady, despite the occasional draft that sneaks in through the cracks. Maya has drifted into a half-dreaming state, her head nodding gently over the dough figures she's been shaping.
Ingrid is tidying the table, putting away the tools they used for their festive preparations, while Solveig hums a tune from her girlhood. A slow, lilting melody that curls through the air like smoke, invoking memories of Christmases long past. and then a knock echoes through the stillness of the night.
Oh no, not again.
It's soft at first, a tap-tap, barely discernible over the crackle of the fire and the rhythmic ticking of the clock. But it's enough to make Ingrid freeze mid-motion, her hand tightening around the rag she'd been using to wipe down the table. Another knock follows louder this time, reverberating through the wooden walls of the cottage, sending a ripple of unease through the room. Solvey's humming ceases abruptly, and she speaks, her voice heavy with suspicion. "Visitors," she states, her tone leaving no room for doubt that she finds this arrival unexpected and potentially unwelcome. Who could it be? Ingrid murmurs more to herself than anyone else.
Right, like who would go visiting on Christmas Eve?
It's a question that hangs in the air, unanswered and unsettling. No one travels on Christmas Eve, not unless they have urgent business or absolutely no sense of the dangers that lurk in the shadows on this night. A third knock shatters the silence, louder and more insistent than the previous ones. It sends a jolt through them all, a visceral reaction to the intrusion on their peaceful Christmas Eve. Ingrid moves towards the door, her steps hesitant, her mind racing with possibilities both welcome and unwelcome. "Stay here," she whispers, casting a protective glance at Maya, her maternal instincts kicking in. She knows that on this night, caution is paramount, and she's determined to shield her daughter from any potential harm. The iron latch creaks as Ingrid lifts it, the sound amplified in the sudden silence. A blast of icy air sweeps into the room, carrying with it the scent of snow and pine, a reminder of the wildness that lies just beyond their doorstep. A figure stands on the threshold, cloaked in dark wool that billows like a shadow against the whiteness beyond. Their hood is drawn low, concealing their face, adding to the air of mystery and intrigue that surrounds them. "God Kveld," the figure greets, their voice soft and melodic. Yet there's something about it that sends a chill racing up Ingrid's spine.
Oh no, I bet it's the stranger again.
I wonder. It's a voice that both soothes and unsettles, a voice that hints at hidden depths and unknown powers. "Might I come in?" the stranger inquires, their voice polite and almost apologetic. "The snow has made my journey long," they continue, "and I seek shelter." Ingrid hesitates, her grip on the door tightening, her mind warring between the ingrained hospitality of her people and the unease that this stranger evokes in her. "Who are you?" she asks, her voice firm, demanding an explanation for this unexpected intrusion. "And what business do you have here tonight?" she adds, her tone making it clear that she's not easily swayed by charm or pleas of hardship. The figure tilts their head slightly, and for the briefest moment, Ingrid thinks she sees a gleam of something sharp beneath the hood. It's a flash of something that could be metal, could be ice, could be something else entirely, something that sends a shiver down her spine, confirming her instincts that this is no ordinary traveler. "Only a weary traveler," the stranger replies, their voice carefully neutral, belying the glint of something wilder that Ingrid glimpsed beneath their hood. "I mean no harm," they assure her, but their words ring hollow in the face of Ingrid's growing apprehension. Solvum's voice cuts through the tension low and commanding, brooking no argument. "Let them in," she orders, her tone laced with a wisdom born of countless winters and encounters with the unseen forces that roam the land. "It's bad luck to turn away a guest on Christmas Eve," she adds, her words invoking a tradition that runs deep in their culture. Ingrid knows that defying this ancient custom could bring misfortune upon their household. Reluctantly, she steps aside, allowing the stranger to cross the threshold and enter their home. The stranger glides in their movements, smooth and deliberate, bringing with them a cold that seems to momentarily dim even the roaring fire. They lower their hood, revealing a pale face with angular features so precise they seem chiseled from ice. Their black hair spills over their shoulders like a midnight river, framing a face that is both beautiful and unsettling. Their eyes an unnatural green glimmer like the depths of a forest untouched by man. They gleam in the firelight, holding a depth of knowledge and power that both fascinates and frightens. The stranger's smile, though polite, is as sharp as the frost outside, hinting at a hidden edge beneath their seemingly benign exterior. They settle into a chair offered by Ingrid, their movements smooth and deliberate, as if they are taking measure of their surroundings and the people within them. "Your home is warm," the stranger remarks, their gaze sweeping the room, taking in the festive decorations, the crackling fire, the sense of family and tradition that permeates the air. Their gaze lingers on the porridge bowl at the windowsill, a flicker of amusement dancing in their eyes. "And you honor the old ways, I see?" they observe, their voice laced with a knowing tone. "Very wise," they add, their words leaving Ingrid unsure whether it's a compliment or a veiled threat. Solveig meets their gaze, unflinching, her milky eyes, holding a strength and wisdom that belies her frail frame. She's not intimidated by this stranger, not swayed by their charm or their aura of power. "We have our traditions," she states simply, her voice even and steady, "And what of you, stranger?" she asks, turning the question back on them. "Do you honor the old ways?" She inquires, her tone challenging, demanding an honest answer.
The stranger's smile widens, revealing a hint of sharp teeth. "I do," they reply, their voice smooth and confident. "In my fashion," they add their words, leaving a lingering sense of mystery. They lean forward, their emerald eyes locking onto Solveig's milky ones, a silent battle of wills taking place between them. "Do you hide your brooms tonight, as the stories say?" they ask, their voice dropping to a near whisper. "To keep us at bay," they add, the question hanging in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Maya gasps, her hand flying to her mouth in a gesture of surprise and fear. Ingrid stiffens her nails, digging into the edge of the table, her protective instincts flaring. The stranger's words have confirmed their suspicions. This is no ordinary traveler, but something more, something other. "We keep our home safe," Solveig states evenly, her fingers resuming their braiding, a testament to her composure in the face of this unsettling revelation. "No harm will come to us tonight," she adds, her voice firm, unwavering. The stranger chuckles, a sound like the snap of brittle branches in the winter wind. It's a sound that sends shivers down their spines. A sound that speaks of ancient power and a knowledge of things best left undisturbed. "Indeed," the stranger agrees, their tone laced with amusement. "You seem well prepared." They observe their gaze sweeping over the hidden cupboard, the bowl of porridge for the Nis, the sense of guarded anticipation that fills the room. They stand pacing towards the window, their movements graceful, predatory, like a wolf circling its prey. Their reflection flickers in the glass, oddly distorted, as if it belongs to another shape, entirely a glimpse of something wilder and more ancient lurking beneath their human guise. "But the night is long," they remark, their voice soft yet filled with a hint of menace. "And full of riddles yet to be answered," they add, leaving their words hanging in the air, a promise of challenges to come. The hours crawl by each tick of the clock, amplifying the tension in the room. The stranger's presence is an unsettling weight, their silence more unnerving than any words they could speak. Their movements, though seemingly casual, are deliberate, predatory. They observe everything, their emerald eyes missing nothing, making Ingrid and Maya feel like butterflies pinned beneath a magnifying glass. At last, as the clock creeps towards midnight, marking the witching hour, the stranger turns to Solveig. Their expression is sharp with a newfound intensity, their eyes gleaming with an almost feverish light. "Shall we play a game?" they ask, their voice smooth and inviting, yet laced with an underlying menace. Solveig's hand still her braiding forgotten. "What sort of game?" she inquires, her voice wary, cautious. The stranger leans closer, their smile turning predatory. "A riddle," they reply, their tone laced with both challenge and a hint of cruelty. "Solve it," they continue, their voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "And I'll grant you a gift," they promise, their words holding the allure of untold rewards. But their tone shifts, becoming darker, more threatening. "Fail," they warn, their voice like a cold wind whistling through the trees. "And I'll take something precious," they finish their words, leaving no doubt that the stakes are high, the consequences dire. "And what would that be?" Ingrid demands, stepping forward, her fear for her daughter outweighing her apprehension towards the stranger. She places herself between the stranger and Maya, a protective barrier against this unknown threat. The stranger's smile turns razor-thin, their amusement turning to something colder, more calculating. Their gaze flickers towards Maya, lingering for a moment too long, sending a chill down Ingrid's spine. "Depends," they reply, their voice devoid of warmth, their words leaving a chilling ambiguity hanging in the air.
That's terrifying.
"I know. I wonder what they're going to take." Solveig rises slowly from her chair, her frail frame seeming to grow taller, stronger as she confronts this challenger. Her milky eyes, though unable to see, seem to pierce through the stranger's facade, reading their intentions with an unnerving clarity. "Speak your riddle," she commands, her voice steady, unwavering. She will not be cowed by threats, will not back down from this challenge, no matter the risks. The stranger's laughter rings out sharp and echoing, as if the room itself is joining in their amusement. It's a sound that grates on their nerves, a sound that speaks of power both ancient and untamed. "Very well," the stranger concedes, their tone still laced with a hint of mockery. Their voice drops low and lilting, weaving a spell of words that captures their attention. "I'm born of the earth, but take to the sky." They begin their riddle, both simple and enigmatic. "I am swift and silent, yet I can never fly." They continue their words, painting a picture of something familiar yet elusive. "I am your ally in toil, but in revel I stray." They add, their voice rising slightly, building suspense. "What am I?" they ask, their voice echoing in the sudden silence that descends upon the room. The fire crackles, the wind howls outside, but within the cottage a heavy silence reigns. Maya clings to Ingrid's skirts, her eyes wide with fear and curiosity.
Ingrid's brow furrows her lips, forming words she does not speak her mind, grappling with the riddle, searching for an answer that eludes her. Solveig stands motionless, her sightless eyes fixed on the stranger. She seems to be listening to something beyond the word, something deeper, something ancient. Finally, after what seems like an eternity, she speaks. "The broom," she states simply, her voice clear and steady, filled with a certainty that surprises even Ingrid. The stranger's laughter rings out again, this time louder, more triumphant. It echoes through the room, filling every corner with a sound that is both exhilarating and terrifying. "Clever old woman," they exclaim, their voice filled with genuine admiration. "You have earned your prize," they declare, their tone softening, slightly acknowledging Solveig's wisdom and courage. They reach into the folds of their cloak and draw forth a small, ornate box, placing it gently in Solveig's outstretched hands. "Open it at dawn," they instruct, their voice low, their gaze intense. "Until then," they warn, their tone turning serious. "Keep your brooms hidden," they urge, their words a reminder of the unseen dangers that still lurk in the night. "Others are not so forgiving as I," they add, their voice trailing off, leaving a chilling echo in their wake. And with that, the stranger turns towards the door, their cloak billowing behind them like a dark cloud. They vanish into the night as suddenly as they appeared. The sound of their laughter fades into the distance, leaving behind a silence that feels both heavy and expectant. Ingrid and Maya stare at the spot where the stranger stood, their minds reeling from the encounter, a whirlwind of questions and emotions swirling within them. Solveig clutches the ornate box tightly in her hands, her expression unreadable. She knows that the stranger's parting words hold a truth that they cannot ignore. The night is far from over, and the dangers they face may only just be beginning. As the first light of dawn broke through the darkness, Solveig gently opened the box.
Ooh, I can't wait to find out what's inside.
Me too. Inside, nestled on a bed of black silk, lay a single raven's feather, smooth and shining like obsidian.
Wow, what a beautiful and mysterious gift.
It is, isn't it? "A raven's feather," Solveig murmured, her voice filled with awe. "A charm of protection," she added, her gaze fixed on the feather. "And a warning." From that day forward, the family's fortunes changed. Their crops flourished, their livestock thrived, and a sense of peace and prosperity settled over their home.
Wow, so the stranger's gift really did bring them good fortune.
It seems that way. But the memory of that Christmas Eve, the stranger's visit, and the riddle that hung heavy in the air never faded. And every Christmas Eve, they took extra care to hide their brooms and honor the Nis.
It sounds like they learned a valuable lesson about respecting the old ways and the unseen forces that surround us.
Yes, they did. Well, that brings us to the end of our story.
What a fascinating tale.
It is, isn't it? It's a reminder that Christmas Eve is a night of magic and mystery, and that the traditions we follow often have deep roots in our history and culture. Well, that's all the time we have for this week's deep dive into Hiding the Brooms, a tale of Christmas Eve in Norway.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. And be sure to tune in next week for another Kringle's Christmas story brought to you by KringlesChristmas.com. And don't forget to pick up your Comet's Choice premium reindeer food at CometsChoice.com so you can make sure Santa's reindeer have a happy and healthy visit to your home this Christmas. Until then, happy holidays.